Oh, hey, good morning, everybody. You're watching Rebel Roundup. I'm your host, Sheila Gunn, but it is Wednesday. And Wednesday means it's Western Wednesday, so we convene the Buffalo panel. We've got two special guests with us today. And as always, on Wednesday, my fellow Buffalonian, Lise Merle, my very best friend from Regina, Saskatchewan. Lise, how's it going?
Well, it's a great day to be a wild Western woman, Sheila Gunn, Reid, and I can't wait to get into the show.
Yeah, it's it's the prairies. So apparently we have a blast of winter coming at us this weekend. I don't know if you heard that, but yep, yep, that too. While you process that, I'm going to tell everybody how to get involved in the show, and then I'll bring our panelists in. So if you're watching us on Rumble, excellent free speech platform, you want to get involved in the show, support the work that we do here at Rebel News, because we'll never take a penny from the government. You can leave a Rumble rant if it's over the $5 US cutoff. We are hereby reading it on air. If it's under that, we'll do our very best to get to it. I can't go too long today because I run into meetings on Wednesdays. If you are watching us on YouTube, the same rules apply, but their paid chat is called a super chat if you miss a live version of the show. But you love yourself some Sheila and Lise and the panelists, you can leave a paid comment called a super thanks. Let's bring in our panelists, please. We've got Cory Morgan, contributor at the Western Standard and independence-minded author of the Sovereigntist Handbook. Cory, thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, always fun to come on with you guys. Thanks.
And a familiar face to anybody in the freedom movement, we've got trucker lawyer Keith Wilson, also advocate for independence and a legal analyst on the topic. Thanks for joining the show, Keith.
Happy to be here.
First thing I want to get into before we get into the nuts and bolts, I guess, I don't even know how to explain this. I was denounced by an NDP MLA yesterday in the Alberta legislature.
Congratulations, Sheila. I didn't know we were celebrating. Tell us more.
But like any misogynist NDP MLA, he attributed my work to my boss, Ezra Levant. Why? Because he didn't actually read or watch the story that he was denouncing in question, and he just made a fool of himself. So Brooks Arcand Paul accused Ezra Levant of spreading misinformation about Alberta's rising separatist movement. He was angry about the results of a poll commissioned by Act4 Alberta. That's a third-party advertiser group. Full disclosure, I'm the contact person over there. And the report showed that 46% of Indigenous folks who responded to our poll would support independence, which is higher than the general population and makes perfect sense because they've been getting screwed by the status quo of federalism for the longest time. But anyways, he's mad. Let's just listen to a little bit of this, and then I'll just debunk him, but I want the guys' responses.
Mr. Speaker, last week a public report came out about foreign interference in our province. Also last week, the Minister of Public Safety alluded to a private report he received from the RCMP where he claimed they found no foreign interference in Alberta's separatist movement, despite the RCMP not issuing any public report and without any evidence of those remarks tabled by that minister. Mr. Speaker, here's the problem. Organizations including DisinfoWatch and the Global Center for Democratic Resilience have demonstrated and warned that as the separatist debate heats up, Albertans are at risk of disinformation and influence from foreign actors from Russia, the USA, and others, including economic actors. Just this past weekend, one of those economic actors issued a poll spreading misinformation. A departure from their usual QE2 highway billboards. I'm talking about Rebel News, who, without sharing an actual poll, claimed that 46% of First Nations support separation. I laugh because I've yet to find a separatist First Nations person, and I talk to Indigenous peoples every day. In incoherent Facebook ramblings, Ezra Levant called our democratically elected chiefs activists.
They are.
Sounds like the things said by the UCP about our courts, doctors, scientists, environmental groups, or grandmothers, to name a few. This debate on separatism is one between Albertans. Wherever you land on that spectrum, it is your right to hold that view. But interference in this debate by foreign or economic actors hurts this debate. First Nations have been fighting a battle against a well-funded campaign by these foreign and economic actors and have raised the alarm months ago. To quote Chief Alan Adam, while Ottawa sleeps, Alberta's first inhabitants are doing everything we can to save Confederation, end quote. It is time for the UCP to finally stand up for our Confederation, or at the very least, to protect our democracy.
It's real funny to listen to them talk about foreign and economic actors while, you know, the unions being economic actors on behalf of the NDP. Rebel News is not foreign. We're Canadian. I'm Albertan. I'm the point person at Act for Alberta. And regarding that poll, it was conducted by Main Street. It cost an arm and a leg. It was a scientific poll. Okay. And it's the same poll that found that 30% are hard-line separatists. And the NDP cite that number all the time, but they throw out the other data from the same poll because it's politically inconvenient for them. Having conversations with other NDP supporting First Nations people is anecdotal. It's not scientific polling. That's talking to your bubble. We all do it. But when an actual poll was conducted and people who identified themselves as First Nation responded 46% in support of independence, then all of a sudden, I guess I'm a Russian psyop. Well, but not me, my boss, because he didn't watch the stupid thing. Cory, go ahead.
It's just goes right into the whole confirmation bias, I guess. I don't like the outcomes and what it said. Thus, I'm just going to question the entire credibility and counter with anecdotes, which are not worth anything. I think, though, they understand how that poll you guys did turns the narrative around. There's a lot of presumption that's been put out by legacy media, put out by NDP people like that, saying there's no support for this on the ground in the Indigenous world. And it found quite otherwise. And it makes perfect sense as to why a lot of Indigenous people would support something like an independence movement, because the status quo is serving them terribly. They're suffering more than any other identifiable category in all of Western Canada. So of course they're going to embrace ideas that might propose radical change. It's just typical of the NDP.
Yeah, and my thought just completely escaped my head here. Lise, go ahead.
Well, this is a masterclass in institutional gaslighting by the NDP and Mr. Brooks, our canned Paul, isn't it? Because he's claiming that there's only one side to this story, okay? And it is his side. And he's going to say, listen, here are all of my friends who say the exact same thing I do. This is why independent media is absolutely imperative in Canadian culture, because Sheila Gunn Reid went out, actually asked the questions, got a great sample size, and revealed the truth. You know what? You know what I think of Janice Irwin leaning in there? Did you see how she was like just trying to be in the shot, like just trying to position herself so she could be in that shot. They can all go. I don't want to be profane here, but they can go beat it. As far as I'm concerned, you just showed them up, Sheila Gunn Reid. You did their job for them and you did it better. And that's why they're bitter and screaming in the ledge about you.
Yeah, I did something that these people didn't do, and that was actually ask First Nations people what they think about the issue, because they're all deciding for the First Nations people what they think about this issue. And by the way, I will call Chief Alan Adam an activist every day of the week, all day long. That guy took thousands of dollars from the Tides Foundation for anti-oil activism. He was the guy touring around with Jane Fonda in Fort McMurray, bashing the oil and gas sector while happily taking money from the oil and gas sector. The guy is the worst kind of activist because he would impoverish his own people to line his own pockets. So yes, Alan Adam, you are an activist. Keith, you have your say.
Well, one of the things that's troubling for those on the left is that, including the NDP, is the fact of the matter is that many of the canvassers, or a fair number of them, for the petition were First Nations. A large number signed. Every canvasser I've talked to has remarked to me about how they had First Nations people sign. And I guess the most important point I would make is that the leadership, the chiefs of a few of the First Nations that have brought in the legal challenge against the democratic petition process, did so without direction from their communities. They did it on their own. And it really seems to be favor-seeking behavior to seek some kind of reward for them from Ottawa. And I've had First Nations members of those reserves reach out to me and express strong concern that there was no consultation, there was no input from the people, and their alarm at the serious problems that their communities face. And here the chiefs are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on lawyers on a whimsical, nonsensical legal challenge against a petition process.
A petition process that gives their own people an equal voice as well, too. Lise, remember we were at the Saskatchewan Prosperity Project event, and a young First Nations man came in.
It was
and
awesome.
It was awesome. He came to
awesome.
listen.
He
came to listen.
He came to what did he was coming to renew his firearm license or to apply for it because it was in a
he was coming to renew, I think, his membership at the local wildlife association.
Oh, okay, yeah. And he stumbled into this meeting, sat down, listened, said profound things. We had this moment of community that we're all supposed to be striving towards, and everybody had a nice day. Incredible the way that happens when the government doesn't put themselves in the middle of it. Yeah. Incredible.
Yeah. Next video, Premier Danielle Smith says she is not committed to an independence referendum yet, citing a pending court ruling involving First Nations interventions and later caucus decisions. I'm sure Keith has a ton to say about this. Let's watch.
Off-topic question, since this is your first press conference in Edmonton in a bit. So separatist leaders are now urging their supporters to buy UCP memberships in an effort to force you to call in independence referendums, given unknowns with the courts and the data leak situation. So will you commit that you will not be the one to call a separation vote?
Well, I can tell you we're waiting on a few things. We're waiting on the committee to do its work on whether the Forever Canada petition should go to a referendum. We're waiting for the court to make a judgment based on some First Nations interventions. And so there's a couple of things that we're waiting for first, and then we'll have to decide that as a caucus and cabinet afterwards. But I think we have to just wait for the process to play out. We have been very open about the fact that we want to be permissive on the topics that citizens decide to put on a ballot. And if it passes various hurdles, if the signatures get validated, then I have said that it will go on the ballot in the fall with the 9 questions we're asking.
So on the flip side, I've also spoken to academics, a former MLA, a union leader, who all have concerns that we're running out of time until that October vote to have a free, fair, informed vote on separation. Are you concerned about that? And what is the deadline to get that issue on the ballot for October?
Well, I mean, I have said that Corb Lund, if he gets the requisite number of signatures, I think that gives us enough time as well to validate those. I believe his signature, meeting him today, and so I'll be interested in seeing how his signature collection is going, but I understand that his signature collection period goes to June 10th. I know that the Elections Alberta has increased its validation standards, so it might take a little bit longer to validate, but I would think that one as well would be completed in sufficient time to go on. So I think we do have enough time to be able to get all of the questions on the ballot in the fall.
Keith, what are the options here if the signature verification remains stalled in the court thanks to activist chiefs like Alan Adam?
Well, when Alberta becomes independent and we have Independence Square built around the legislative grounds, there's going to be big statues, but there's going to be 2 little statues. And one of the statues is going to be of Mark Carney, probably to scale. And then the other one will be of Thomas Lukasik, because we owe him a great deal of gratitude on the independence side, because he successfully achieved a petition that expressly states, there's very few words that he himself wrote. They're descriptive, and they clearly say that by signing this petition, that the signers are calling on the Alberta government to hold a referendum, says it twice, on essentially independence, but he phrases it whether Alberta should stay in Canada. So the Premier already has sufficient political mandate to proceed, but I think she's following appropriate steps and waiting to see what the courts might have to say on this very strange challenge brought by a few First Nations chiefs. And then she's going to have to, and the government's going to have to wait for the count to occur, which will take, 21 days or thereabouts. And then after that, they've got to wait to see what the legislative committee comes back with, who is analyzing Thomas Lukasik's successful referendum petition. And then after that, it will have to go to the lawyers in the constitutional law section at Alberta Justice, because when the government's going to spend millions of dollars of tax money on holding a referendum province-wide, as is scheduled for October 19th, you want to make sure that the question is legally valid and is compliant with the 1998 reference decision from the Supreme Court of Canada. So those are all the steps that need to occur. There's a silver, so it looks like, the soonest that the government would be in a position to pass the order in council, setting the independence question under the Referendum Act, would be sometime in June or July. What's positive about that, in my view, is that we're no longer in a petition period. That ended when Mitch Sylvester's Stay Free petition was delivered, and we're not in a referendum campaign period, because that doesn't start until the cabinet issues an order in council. So that means we're in a period of free political expression, free political engagement, and we're not constrained legally by the very, very difficult, confusing rules that Elections Alberta has to administer. So it's a real opportunity for independence movements, groups to advance the campaigns and move forward with convincing Albertans to vote yes.
Yeah, I've learned a lot about reporting campaign finance stuff over the last little bit, with a great bit of fear and trepidation about being Dean Del Mastro'd and the like. Cory, going to you, I mean, at the end of the day, the premier could just put this on the referendum ballot herself, right? I mean, she's put a whole slate of things on the agenda with regard to immigration on October 19th. She really could just put this on there. If this gets tied up in the court, I mean, it would not be great politically speaking for her to do that, but she could.
Yeah, and Keith, I mean, it speaks excellently on the legalities of the process, and I could speak a bit to the politics of it. The premier is in a very tough spot. This debate has to be held in the open forum through a referendum. That's really what it's all come to. Ideally, I think in the premier's position, if it would go through the process and be approved by Elections Alberta, it really gives her that distance to say, look, we offered the legislation, the people utilized it, and now we're going to follow through on why, it was set up in the first place. If it does get shut down by the courts or something else, I think politically she's going to feel compelled to put it on the ballot anyways, because this issue it's been the issue for a year now, and it's not going to go away. The only way it's going to go away is to have a vote, and one side or another is going to have a definitive victory, I guess you could call it, on that. So she knows that this thing is going to go one way or another. I'm pretty confident. But it's just a matter of which way it's going to end up on the ballot. We're going to find out, as Keith said, it's still going to take a month or two before we get clarity, I guess.
Lise?
Well, I don't think that she's in a difficult position at all. At the end of the day, Danielle Smith was elected to represent the people of Alberta. She wasn't represented to elect Ottawa being imported into Alberta. So I look forward to this summer in Alberta. I'm going to spend as much time there as I possibly can, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what the separatist side can convince the people of Alberta is in their future. So,
yeah. All right. Next, this is from Peter McCaffrey, who says, huge news. The Liberal government just confirmed that clear majority in the Clarity Act means, I guess, what we all have accepted it to mean many years ago, 50% plus one. If the Liberals had wanted to put 60% in the Clarity Act, they could have, but it's good to see some clarity, he says. So let's show that clip, Olivia, please.
Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister and his Justice Minister confirmed that they will subject any potential referendum to the anti-democratic Referendum Clarity Act. They want to choose the question. They want to set the threshold for a majority. Let's remind them that democracy means 50% of the votes plus one. That's the rule wherever democracy exists. We also need to remind them that the difference between a democracy and a banana republic is precisely when a government interferes with the democratic choice of its citizens. Will the government respect democracy? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are a government that is always going to protect the Constitution and the Charter, and we will always defend both of those. We will not say further at this time. We will await to see what is happening in Alberta, but the Prime Minister has been very clear. The rules are clear. There needs to be a majority, 50% plus one. There are laws around this. They need to be respected. The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Well, they weren't as clear as that yesterday. Democracy means 50% of the votes plus one. That's the threshold everywhere. All laws passed here, and for the election of every person to this House, it's the same for everyone. To challenge that is to challenge, in the case of Quebec, the right of a people to its own self-determination. It's an attack on Quebec's Bill 99, which establishes the 50% plus one rule for any referendum. And that's a law that has withstood judicial review. It's an attack on the principle of free elections. Will the Liberals put an end to this authoritarian drift and respect democracy? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, our party will always respect the law of the Land, the Clarity Act, 50% plus one. We do not have the intention to go against that law, which is very, very clear. We believe in democracy, and we will wait to see what is happening in Alberta.
Okay, well, I'm happy that a Quebec MP asked that question. I'm happy that it came from the bloc, because I think if that came from a Conservative MP from Alberta, we would have heard 60% something. We'll have to figure this out. We can't break the country apart on 50% plus one. But because these guys just love to kiss the butts of Quebecers, at least they lowered, or at least maintained the threshold that we already knew existed. I'll go to Cory.
Sure. I was glad to see the confirmation. I know there's been a lot of debate over what a clear majority is versus a simple majority versus others. And well, in the House of Commons, pretty clearly and repeatedly stated, they said 50% plus one. It shows that double standard. They want to tell Alberta you can't go, but they're also terrified of Quebec. So I'm glad the bloc is there, because anytime that the federal government would possibly say that Alberta is not allowed to go, that means they're also saying Quebec isn't allowed to, and the bloc and the PQ will go wild. So they won't stop the process. We do have to thank Quebec for that. Speaking realistically, though, for those who want a yes vote in a referendum, I think morally and just functionally, you still better strive for something quite a bit bigger than 50% plus one, because if that's what we saw on October 20th, I'm afraid we're going to be in for a really rough year of protests, court challenges, and all sorts of questioning of it. So all the same, it was great to see that clarified by our Liberal elected officials. I appreciated that.
Keith?
Well, what it shows is the challenge that the Carney Liberals have in this particularly unique time in history, where, you know, in the past, when they were dealing with the referendums in Quebec on the past two occasions, things were pretty calm out here on the prairies. And so they could do whatever they wanted as a Liberal federal government to try and appease the separatists in Quebec. Whereas now they're in a bit of a wedge situation where between a difficult, rock and a hard place, because anything they do, or most things that they would do to try and address concerns, the legitimate grievances of those of us in Alberta, could be antagonistic to Quebec. And the things that they do to try and quell things in Quebec are actually helpful and amplifying for Alberta. So I've said many times that we have a unique set of circumstances in Alberta and in Canada and in the world and in the United States that make independence for Alberta uniquely viable at this time in history. And what you just saw happen is one instance of this strange convergence of events.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons we want to leave. Like I watched that and I'm like, that's why we want to go, because Quebec is going to get a clear answer and we're going to get the runaround. Lise?
Yeah, no, I just love that Quebec is acting sort of as our backstop in the West right now, where we can sort of just look and point at them and go, right, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and we'll be taking some of what Quebec's getting. We're not asking their permission. That's the crazy thing. It's like we're not asking for their permission. We're gonna do this. Of course, we're not gonna get their permission. So of course we have to do
Right.
this on our own. So
Right. Yes. We've hit the halfway mark of the show. I think we have to say bye to Cory. He's on loan to us for half an hour from the Western Standard. But Keith, you're going to stay on?
Sure.
Okay, perfect. Cory, before you go, let people know how they can find your work and also how they can buy your book, The Sovereigntist Handbook.
Sure. Well, it's westernstandard.news. You'll see my columns, Epoch Times as well. And to find the book, it's the Sovereigntist Handbook on Amazon. Just give it a search and it'll pop right up.
Great. Thanks, Cory. Let's hit an ad break and we'll see Lise and Keith with me on the other side. Are you 18 to 30, curious, ambitious, and tired of cookie cutter journalism? Then listen up. I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. I'm the chief reporter at Rebel News, but I'm also the president of the Independent Press Gallery. And I'm excited to tell you that applications are now open for the 2026 Student Journalism Conference, a 3-day, all expenses paid training experience in Toronto, August 28th to 30th. That means your travel, your hotel, and your meals are all covered. You just bring the drive. This isn't a lecture hall snooze fest. It's hands-on reporting, real-world skills, practical training, and direct access to experienced independent journalists who know how the media landscape in Canada actually works. This year's theme is citizenship and civil liberties, 2 issues that matter now more than ever. You'll also compete in a live collaborative reporting challenge, creating a real journalism project with a chance to win the grand prize. And here's the big part. Past graduates are now working in independent media organizations all over Canada, building careers, breaking stories, and making a difference. Only 20 applicants will be selected, so the competition is real. Deadline to apply is June 14th. If you've got grit, curiosity, and something to say, apply now at studentjournalismconference.com. Canada needs more journalists who ask tough questions. Maybe one of them is you.
Gun bans make great distractions.
Trudeau may be gone, but Carney has picked up his same
We
rhetoric.
will quickly, and I mean quickly, reinvigorate the buyback of
Hunters, collectors, competitors, and defenders of tradition are still being targeted, while criminals run wild under Liberal policy. But we are fighting back. Join us. Canada's National Firearms Association, in defense of freedom.
All right. Now, I want to talk about the expected MOU deal with Mark Carney by Friday. This is from our friend Rick Bell at the Calgary Herald / Calgary Sun. And I like Rick Bell, but I just don't like how jubilant this article is. It sounds like a deal is going to be done for a West Coast pipeline. I don't know who's stepped forward to do this because the last West Coast pipeline came in at approximately 800% over budget and years overdue. And it involved federal government taking over the project instead of just enforcing the law to get the project done. That was the twinning of an existing pipeline that has pumped safely since the Korean War and the pipeline is to be built in the existing easement. But my concern is what we're giving away to get this deal done. And it sounds like an enormous hike in the industrial carbon tax. Keith?
Well, this MOU saga that is far from over is excellent evidence in support of independence. It is real-time demonstration of the failed experiment of Canada in so many ways. And let me just emphasize one point right out of the get-go, because I don't think it gets enough attention, which is I think a lot of people were assuming that the new increased Carney costs of net zero, of the industrial carbon tax, of the Pathway CCS project, of the methane regulations and other net zero requirements would only be applied to new production of Alberta oil and gas that go to new Asian markets at some kind of premium. Well, that's not the case at all. These new costs of somewhere between $5 to $15 a barrel, $5 to $15 a barrel, are going to be imposed immediately on all of the exports, all of the production, including domestic, that supplies Vancouver and central Canada and obviously Western Canada, but also those huge volumes of daily exports, 90% of our exports that go to the United States, which many complain is already at a discount. So we're going to be intentionally making the entirety of our oil and gas industry less competitive, less profitable for Carney's climate obsession. This is just absolutely ridiculous. And what's most telling is you have seen in the last month oil company CEO after oil company CEO, clearly and forcefully, pipeline CEOs, and even the timid and often reserved and super sensitive political organization called the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers, all say that not a single customer is asking for this. Carney is absolutely full of it when he says otherwise. And it's going to increase, these guys have to assume that oil's at $50 a barrel. Right. They can't assume, oil and gas companies, that it's going to stay at 100 or 75. And then they have to say, well, what's our cost to get it out of the ground? What's our cost to get it to market? And now you're going to add $5 to $15. And they go, wait a minute, we're going to lose $5 a barrel. We're not going to make any money. Well, that's a bad business decision. So that's why you had all the oil companies come forward and say, you're going to make this into the third largest reserve of oil is going to become a stranded asset stuck in the ground. So this MOU is just illustrating the folly of the Carney Liberals' climate obsession. And I think their real goal, which is to keep oil and gas in the ground and transition us to this fantasy land of everything being electricity and net zero.
Yeah. I mean, thanks for showing up, Cenovus CEO, 10 years too late. I guess better late than never, as Lise said the other day. But yeah, 10 years too late, because we spent 10 years with the Liberals and the NDP pointing at these guys saying they want it. They want this. And now, 11 years down the road, they're saying, well, maybe we don't.
Right.
You know, Lise?
Yeah, well, they have to call it a memorandum of understanding, because calling it propaganda, nobody would believe it then. You know what I mean? If they were really honest about it. But until I see honest to God shovels in the ground, equipment getting staged and sent out to dig these major nation building projects, I'm not believing a word coming out of Mark Carney's mouth. They lie. They're lying liars, and that's what they're doing here to us again.
Well, and that doesn't mean that even if there's an MOU, even if there's a private sector proponent of it, it actually doesn't mean that the pipeline will ever get built. We saw them do this to Energy East. We saw them do this to Northern Gateway. Energy East, they changed the rules on those guys halfway through the proposition of the project. And they just said, you know what? Maybe not. And actually, we're going to change the name of our company to TC Energy instead of TransCanada because you literally can't get anything TransCanada. So we're going to shake the stigma off there. I mean, so even if they do propose this, even if there is a private sector company that steps up and says, fine, we'll build it.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that it will ever get built. We saw it with Energy East, fell apart, died on the vine.
And nobody's going to sign up to build it when they don't have any assurances that they have the government support, that the government's not going to pull the wool out from under them midway through the process. Like, we've seen this whole dance before. We've seen this whole dance before. And again, yeah, unless I see shovels in the ground, not believing a lot about it.
And Lisa, it's even worse than that, because that's a real risk. I completely agree. But it's worse than that for the first most acute reason, which is the most likely builder of this pipeline would be Enbridge. And Enbridge CEO was absolutely clear that they just don't build these on a whim. They go to oil companies and say, hey, if we build a pipeline, would you sign up to fill 5% of it with oil that you plan to produce? And then the oil company says, yeah, we actually do plan to expand our production. We do see a market in Asia. So we will sign on and commit to 5% of your pipeline in terms of filling it with our oil, 5% of its capacity. And then once they get to a certain point where they feel the risk is manageable, Enbridge makes the decision to proceed. Well, no company will come forward, oil company, and commit to increased production because of the increased costs that Carney is imposing through the MOU and his carbon taxes and his pathways, carbon sequestration, and so on. So there's that fundamental problem that all of this, this rhetoric, respectfully, from politicians has no connection to the real world. It's just nonsensical, aspirational talk. And then on top of that, we have the remarkable situation where, you know, what are the rules going to be to actually get it approved? But we have certainty around what two of them are. And one is that the government of British Columbia has been given by Carney an unconstitutional power to veto the pipeline. EB's been given a veto. Carney's confirmed that repeatedly. And EB has said he will exercise it and block the pipeline. And then Carney's also given an unconstitutional, unlawful veto to First Nations, that they can veto the pipeline, and they have said they will. So I just don't know. Part of my frustration is, why are the politicians not being honest with us?
Right.
These are all truths. It doesn't matter whether you're on the left or the right, or you subscribe to, you know, the climate hysteria, or whether you don't. These are facts. The Constitution gives exclusive jurisdiction to the federal government to approve interprovincial pipelines. Full stop. The courts recently confirmed that with TMX when the BC government of the day tried to block it. That is absolutely clear. So that for the Prime Minister to ignore that and go against it, make an action and a decision that's contrary to the Constitution, and give vetoes to parties that don't have a legal say, is truly remarkable. And I was meeting with a lawyer yesterday in Calgary on another matter, and we were discussing this. And I said to him, imagine he was on for his client group and I'm on for mine, and we just reached this big deal, settlement agreement, call it an MOU. And right after, I said, my client went to a press conference and announced 2 steps to block the agreement that we just reached from going ahead. I said, you would be either phoning me immediately and you would be having strong words, and it would be immediately followed by a very strongly worded demand letter on the basis that clearly this was not a good faith agreement. Clearly, your client engaged in a misrepresentation of its true intentions, and you've just sabotaged the deal. So the fact that, respectfully, that Premier Smith sits back and lets Carney get away with announcing that he's already sabotaged the MOU because he's given unconstitutional veto powers to the First Nations. They have a duty There's a duty to consult. The courts have been clear. First Nations do not have a veto. They never have. There's a duty to consult and accommodate. That's it. And clearly that the BC government does. And then on top of all this, we have the pipeline companies saying, well, we can't build it unless oil companies commit to the additional production and putting their oil, their newly produced oil in a pipe. And the oil companies saying, well, we can't produce more if we've got to pay these new carny taxes of $5 to $15 a barrel.
So created sort of created loopholes for themselves not to do what they say they're going to do. That's it.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
okay.
Escape mechanisms.
It's a poison pill. Yeah.
Yeah.
To make it seem real, but it's not real. There's none of this that's real at the end of the day. And it doesn't matter what I say. It matters what the people in the companies who would have to put up the capital, whose boards of directors would have to approve the investments of billions of dollars in increased production, of billions and billions of dollars in carbon capture technologies, and the oil companies the same. This is all not grounded in reality, but most importantly, at a high level, it illustrates how broken Canada is, how artificially constrained Alberta's opportunities are, and why Alberta should become independent. Because once we're independent, we don't have to have these ridiculous ideological carbon taxes. No customer wants them. That's increasingly clear. And Alberta can chart its own path to become the freest, most prosperous country in the world.
Keith, I want to ask you about this story about the Mikisew Cree First Nation. They're suing Alberta and Canada over oil sands developments. They say that decades of industrial development have damaged lands and waters, disrupted traditional practices, and contributed to serious health impacts in the community. That's what their lawsuit says. Now, I think you and I both know the same thing about Mikisew, and that it is deeply involved in the oil and gas sector. They've got the Mikisew group of companies is about $120 million group of companies. They employ about 850 people in the oil and gas sector. So it appears as though they're playing both sides of the fence here. And again, I think this is done at the hands of activist chiefs. Mikisew continues to participate and partner in oil and gas projects. They have a 12% stake in 7 different Enbridge operated pipelines. So tell me how you're claiming that you're being harmed by the oil and gas sector while enriching yourself from the oil and gas sector in ways that other Indigenous bands would love to. And also there's a fact in here that everybody seems to miss. Cancer rates affect Indigenous people globally at higher rates than the rest of the population. So
is that what they're claiming? Is that what they're claiming?
No, that is the truth. So it's a global issue. And so, correlation does not equal causation here. And I think they're going to have a tough time proving this in the courts.
Well, as a lawyer who has successfully sued oil companies for health impacts on behalf of the farmers and ranchers that I've represented over the decades, because things do occasionally go wrong. The industry is incredibly responsible, but like everything else in life, there's bad actors and bad things happen. And I've had to go in and deal with that. And my existing lawsuits that I'm running right now are related to groundwater contamination and legacy oil and gas issues. So I understand this issue extremely well. I ran the public inquiry many years ago about health impacts from oil and gas development in the Peace River country. So I'm sitting there looking at this. I haven't seen the actual lawsuit yet. It's not publicly available, and I'd like to read it. I'm very suspicious. I wouldn't, if I was framing it, I wouldn't be suing the government. I would be suing the company that I believed had caused the harm. So that right off the bat suggests to me it might be politically motivated. They may be trying to fit it under some kind of alleged treaty violation, I suspect. But I would just simply say this. How is it that the oil sands was discovered? The oil sands was discovered back in became known, in the 1700s and the 1800s, when the fur traders and the First Nations were going up and down the Athabasca River. And when they got up to where close to Fort McMurray is, why is it called a fort? Because it was a trading post. And they would see the banks of the river, and they would see the oil running down the bank and into the water. So this is not something that was deep down in the ground like traditional pump jack wells you see in the Central Prairies. This is at surface in many places and oozes out into the water system. So it's naturally occurring up there. I don't know what's behind this lawsuit. I'm not comforted by it. It just seems on its face opportunistic and part of a pattern.
Yeah, I just don't know how you can say that your people are being killed on one hand, and then you're running a multi-million-dollar company that employs 800 people in the oil and gas sector, and then partnering on all these pipeline projects. Like, for me, just as like a non-legal observer, I think, I feel as though they're talking out of both sides of their mouths, and I think there's another agenda at play there. Lise?
Yeah, no, there is. And when people see this sort of level of duplicity coming out of bans, it doesn't add to people's comfort with approaching truth and reconciliation, does it? Because it's hard to enter into good faith agreements with people that are just going to turn around and fight you for what they said they wanted.
Yeah.
It doesn't look good on anybody, to be honest.
Lise, next topic is yours. You want to talk to Keith about what happened to Francis Widdowson, but also Lindsay Shepherd attempted Jonathan Kay, also Aaron Gunn, and there's another person involved. Lise, you can key it up.
Yeah, so everybody, we all know of Francis Widdowson, absolute firecracker of a professor who was relieved of her duties in a post-secondary institution in Canada. Well, recently, it was exposed, just like breaking news this morning, yesterday sort of, that Francis Widdowson was lured by a production alleged to be belonging to the CBC.
Not alleged, confirmed by Lindsay Shepherd. Yeah, confirmed by Lindsay Shepherd.
Lured Francis Widdowson. Lindsay Shepherd tried to get Dallas Brody, anybody who's taken a critical position on the 215 graves story out of Kamloops. They shipped her to Vancouver. They put her up in a hotel. They put her in a production that was just stuffed, I guess, with CBC employees. Keith Wilson, Francis Widdowson exposed them. This is what they did. They put her in a production room. Francis Widdowson knows that something is amiss in the room and says, "Could you please bring me my purse? My medication is in it." She claimed to be an old lady in that moment, tricked them, grabbed her phone, and turned the tables on them. Thank God Francis Widdowson is showing us the way. But Keith Wilson, my question to you is it unlawful in Canada to lure somebody under false pretenses? Enter into a contract where obviously it's not rooted in reality, and that you're going to deceive somebody. Like, is this allowed to happen in Canada? Keith?
Well, it'd be a little bit of a gray area, but for sure there is case law around whether or not someone's consented to being interviewed or videotaped. And you guys would have encountered that when you try and you're out on an event and you're on a street and someone's walking by or holding a protest sign. You go up and ask them a question and say, "Don't film me." And it's like, well, then go home then.
Right.
Like I'm allowed to, I'm out because there's an implied consent. So there would be an issue there. There'd also, if there was some kind of contract, there would be an issue of misrepresentation. And if the end product is cut and diced to misrepresent things and it's intended to cause people to think bad about you, there'd be a defamation claim. But this is a cautionary tale. You can imagine that given my profile over the years and some of the difficult, controversial, high-profile cases I've taken on, that I do get the odd request. And one of the things that I always do, and I caution anybody who's in a position to do so, is you always assume it's a trick. I mean, if you guys contact me, I know I'm safe, but I've met you both in person and I know who you are. But if it's someone else, I always research them extensively.
Same.
I go and I want to see their past documentaries. I look to see what they were about. I do extensive research before I would ever consent to any kind of interview. And especially if they're trying to offer me something, I refuse any kind of gift, any kind of payment, any kind of reimbursement of expense. I say, no, that's good. I'll look after that. I'm okay. Thank you very much. Anything that could compromise those of us who are speaking truth to power and calling out the ideological left have to be very careful.
Because Frances Widdowson did a live stream from the airport on the way home from this event, Keith Wilson, and she literally showed the envelopes of cash that they had given her as a, as a per diem or a, as an honorarium.
Never.
Like, this is the CBC. This is the CBC that is misleading the Canadian public, bribing people with envelopes full of cash, and then when they find out, they're like, oh, no harm done. Absolute harm done. Keith Wilson, I'd like to just expand on this question. So you said that it might be a legal gray area, luring people to an event. Recently in Saskatchewan, 400 students were lured by Aboriginal activists, Keith, into the Globe Theatre to see a not safe for work, sexually explicit drag field trip performance. Would it change then if children were involved? Is it technically bad to lure children for the reasons of potential sexual exploitation in Canada?
Well, that gets, there's so many layers to that, right? And who knew what when would be critical factors. The teachers have a legal responsibility. They're in the role of parent, and parenti I think is the Latin. So they have, I didn't pronounce the Latin right, but there's a Latin expression that talks about the legal role of a teacher.
Is that what it is?
Yes, that's what it. Thank you. So they would have that duty, and if they knowingly took them in, there could be some liability potentially. But what's going on, man? Could we just teach kids and take them on field trips maybe to I met a new Canadian, and he was him and his wife followed legal immigration processes from India many years ago, and they had 2 children. And he was telling me, he was an Uber driver, and he was telling me how they'd sent their young children back to India for education, and was telling me about the field trip they were on that day. And they were on a field trip to a manufacturing plant because they wanted to show kids how entrepreneurs work and what these types of jobs and machines can do. And, the values and the concerns him and his wife had for what their kids were being exposed to, they actually had their kids back with their parents in India, getting a traditional education in India. So it just shows how badly awry we've empowered the left, that ideology and identity politics is paramount, and that we've gone way past tolerating sexual identity differences or what people think about is important in their sex lives to pushing it on children. And that's just completely unacceptable. And that's why Premier Smith has such high level of support on issues outside of independence, because she's taken a very protective stance of parents saying we got to get these pride flags and ideology out of schools. My wife and I have 4 kids. They're all done schools now, but in the latter years, some of the stories that my kids would tell about what their teachers were doing and saying to them, and how they would come in wearing dresses, and
it is wild, Keith.
This is does not bode well for the future of our society if these are the social standards.
On the flip side, I think it's making kids more conservative, because they look at this and they say, ugh, no thanks.
Yeah, that's the silver lining. That's the silver lining, is the kids absolutely didn't buy it.
Yeah.
The kids absolutely didn't buy it. And they were the first ones to raise the alarm. They're actually a testament to their parents. And we will just continue following the story. Thanks for that input, Keith. Really appreciate it.
I think we're at the end of the show. We've just got chats and the daily delight instead of the daily cringe. I guess the daily cringe was the NDP MLA denouncing me, but also getting it wrong. Keith, let people know how they can find your analysis of the independence movement and the issues facing it.
Sure, I'm active on X, and my account handle is at IK Wilson. There's a little picture of my war room in the background there. That's really it. It's there. Those monitors are over here. And
holy crap, Keith! Holy crap! You got a tech setup there, buddy.
Yeah, there's 12. Somebody said, "Why do you have 12?" And I said, "Because 16 is too many." Because I did have 16
One's
at one
too
time,
many.
and I was getting neck pain, so I'm not an owl. But 12's optimal. And I've had that set up for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years at least. It works really well.
Have you tried Ritalin?
Keith, that's a great.
I did have
that's a great-
someone. I did have someone walk in who's a special ed teacher, and I walked in my office and said, "Holy ADHD."
Yeah. That's
Keith's
a
brain
Ritalin ad
always
right
has
there.
Keith's brain always has 12 tabs open all the time. We get a glimpse into
No,
how
each
he
screen
operates.
has many tabs. That's just 12 screens. Of course. Are you kidding me? No, never just one tab per screen. But the other way you can get a hold of me, or if you're interested in the things that I'm talking about, would be a YouTube channel that my son forced me into setting up a few months ago. And it just search YouTube, Keith Wilson lawyer, or Keith Wilson KC, and you can see my latest updates on matters relating to Alberta independence.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you so much, Keith. We'll have you back on again very soon.
Thank you. It's good to see both of you. Have a great day.
You too, Keith.
Thank you. All righty. Let's get to some of the chats, shall we?
Yes.
And
I
then,
wish Keith could see our daily delight today because it's such a personal high for me.
well,
but
he can. I mean, the show's
I'm
recorded.
going to send it to him. I'm going to send it to him direct. It's fine. Everybody's going to see it.
You know what? It's completely the opposite of what happened to me, isn't it?
It is. We are two bookends, Sheila, Gunn,
Yeah.
Reid. Like just wait till you guys see it. It's
The
great.
yin and the yang.
Yep.
Independent Alberta gives us $5. Please bring on the complaining against Alberta independence. It's the Streisand effect. Yeah.
That's right. The more we talk, the more they talk about it, the more momentum we'll get.
I encourage Glenn McGregor to never shut up about how there is complete and total balance in the Senate for Westerners.
Jason Kenney, do wax lyrical about what hillbillies the people of Alberta are. Keep doing that, bud.
Yes,
Keep doing that.
yes. Tonda McCharles, please opine. Please.
Chime in.
Please. Yeah, chime in. Raise your voices. Get involved in the conversation, Laurentian elites. Independent Alberta, $5. Good news for all those in the 61.7% in Alberta who voted to stop the equalization payments in 2021. You get a second chance on October 19th, 2026.
Beautiful point.
That is great.
Beautiful.
That's an Act 4 Alberta ad right there.
Sheila Gunn, Reid, screen cap that quickly, screen cap that. Yes,
I am. I print screen right now.
Thank you, Independent Alberta.
Yep. Because that was Jason Kenney's referendum on equalization, and then he didn't do anything about it. And now we're supposed to listen to him about how to do things. If we just did things his way, they would be different. And it's like, good sir, you were in charge for 4 years. We even held an independent, like a referendum on unfairness within Confederation. We gave you a mandate, and what did you do?
Nothing.
Okay. So get out of here, Jason Kenney. Go away. Snowy roof, $5. If it wasn't for CO2, life would be a moonscape devoid of life. Actually, when CO2s were much higher, we had greater diversity of life on the planet. Bigger plants, bigger animals.
Saskatchewan was a tropical oasis. I look forward when we can go back to that time. Okay, I'm done with winter. I would love us to be tropical.
Yeah, we're getting winter again this weekend.
I cannot believe it, Sheila Gunn, Reid. And I was supposed to be at your. Listen, it's good that we deferred that trip till the next weekend.
Yeah,
because this is crazy.
Yeah,
winter.
We have to make centerpieces. That's the job we've been given. I thought you'd enjoy that.
Give me a glue gun. I am such an absolute weapon.
I bought a new one.
With a glue gun. I can't wait. I'm going to bring my own. Bring some hole punches and glue guns. We're going to have the best weekend ever. Can't wait.
I have a beer holster, but we can repurpose it for a glue gun holster for you.
You will never see a happier Western woman than me with my glue gun holster, just stomping off
Gluing
across
fake
Sheila Gunn
flowers
Reid's
to
yard.
things.
That's right. I was built for this.
Alrighty. Alberta Dawn, $5. If I was a
Mm.
young rig hand that watched a senior oil executive in 1981 on TV, he told Canada that oil producers can no longer, I think, work with the federal government policies and will cease many activities. Done.
Oh,
Yeah, that's the National Energy Program, and many of the juniors didn't survive that. They were just
Sure.
cannibalized by the big guys or closed
That's
up
right.
shop.
That's exactly right.
Jess in GP gives us $2.79 and says Sheila and Lise are my daily delight.
Thanks, babe. Us too. Right back at you. Thank you.
Now
It's a
here is
pleasure.
the daily delight for real. So earlier, if you watched the show from the beginning, I was denounced in the legislature by an NDP MLA who did not direct the denunciation towards me, but rather to my male boss, because he doesn't attribute work that women do to them, but to their male bosses. And I'm reliably informed that that's systemic sexism. Anyway, it was an Act for Alberta poll, and he didn't like the results. Now, Lise recently attended at the Saskatchewan legislature. You regular viewers will know that she had to pop off the show a little bit early last week because she had something to do. Well, this is the thing she had to do, and this is what they said about our beloved Lise. Let's watch.
I recognize the Minister of Advanced Education. Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Second time around, I've noticed in the Speaker's Gallery 2 community leaders from known across Saskatchewan, Lise Merle and Mike Curls. And Lise, I just want to thank both of you for all you do in the province, and I know Lise a bit. I know of her and all the work that she does. Mike Curros, I know him. I got a lot on this guy, I tell you. But he does so many things in the community of Saskatoon, for sure. And I think back to my early career. I think the first event that I did officially as an MLA back in 2003 was Care and Share. And it was Mike Curros and former MLA Ted Merriman and others that led that, and they provided school lunches for students very quietly behind the scenes, and did that. So, Mr. Speaker, today I want to recognize Lise Merle and Mike Curros for all that they do across the province, and welcome them to their legislative assembly. Thank you. I recognize a member from Saskatoon Centre.
That's good. Adam, add it to the bio. Community leader.
Officially a community leader. You guys, you heard it in the Saskatchewan legislature. I'd like to thank Ken Cheveldayoff, one
Right?
of our remaining urban Sask Party MLA from Saskatoon and Minister of Advanced Education, for that sweet, sweet introduction at the legislature. I just need it to be known that at the time of that introduction, I was suffering so greatly from altitude sickness, from being that high up in the rafters in the Speaker's Gallery. I'm from Saskatchewan. I'm a flatlander. Okay, anything over the second rung on a ladder is a nope from me, fam. Like, my legs start shaking. You should have seen the Sheila Gunn Reid. The absolute sweaty, almost vomit-inducing height that I was at. And then Ken starts talking. Everybody looks, and I think, this is the most surreal moment of my life. So in any case, you guys, thank you so much for that beautiful, warm welcome. And it's not every day that the work that Rebel News does gets acknowledged in our legislatures. And this was a real proud moment for me. So thanks for letting me share it with you.
That was great. It was well deserved. Community leader, acclaimed LGBTQ plus AI author, mom of 6, journalist.
All day, just beloved in Saskatchewan.
Beloved.
Just the next one. Actually, in that clip, somebody says "here, here," and I'm like, oh, "Who was that? Who was it?" I got to listen to the audio real deep, but yeah, it was a pretty great moment. It was a pretty great moment. The Italian ambassador was also there. Me and the Italian ambassador had a great day at the legislature. So thanks for allowing me to show it to you guys.
That was great. And we'll celebrate all of your achievements here at Rebel News. Let's wrap the show. I've got a meeting to get to. Lise, I guess I'll see you next Tuesday.
We're going to be back next Tuesday with a vengeance. Thanks so much for having me, Canada. Keep your eyes peeled on the Rebel News YouTube or Rumble page, because we have reports coming up on this drag queen field trip that you cannot miss. Okay. The truth is getting its pants on, and we're it. So.
Yep. Nobody else did the work that Lise did to actually talk to the parents and try to get to the bottom of it. And I think we're going to put some pressure on the Saskatchewan government to make sure that this sort of thing never happens to kids again.
And the best part is that those same people just called me a community leader and said I
did shovel day off, actually.
Real great work in Saskatchewan. So I just can't wait for these next couple weeks. Yeah. Let there be light.
Yes. Livia, thanks for putting the show together. Special thanks to our guest, Cory Morgan of the Western Standard, Keith Wilson, acclaimed trucker lawyer, independence advocate. Check him out on YouTube or on his X page. Thanks to those of you who pitched in a little bit to keep the lights on here at Rebel News. Those who interact with our content, I must tell you, it's very helpful when you engage with our content. Very free, very helpful. We appreciate you for that. I think I'm back here tomorrow with Tamara Ugolini.
I can't wait.
I
just love you guys together. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can't wait for the show. It really, your natural curls just come out. No, but it's truly my favorite thing to watch after us. Like, it's the day you and Tamara Ugolini are the day after us. And then you and David Menzies at the end of the week. It just frames the whole entire week.
Well, thank you.
Perfectly.
Okay, let's sign off. As we always say on the show here, if you find us offensive, maybe don't find us at all. Each year, independent journalists break the stories that matter most. They expose corruption, challenge powerful institutions, and report the stories legacy media too often ignore. Now it's time to recognize that work. I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. I'm the president of the Independent Press Gallery, and I'm inviting you to join us for the IPG Awards Luncheon on Sunday, August 30th, 2026, for an afternoon celebrating excellence in independent journalism from around the world. Held as part of the Democracy Fund's Student Journalism Conference, the IPG Awards shine a spotlight on fearless reporting in video, written, and investigative journalism. This isn't about giant, well-funded, taxpayer-subsidized corporate newsrooms. It's about the freelancers filing stories from their kitchen tables at midnight, the documentary filmmakers chasing truth with no safety net, the independent reporters keeping democracy alive one story at a time. And this year, there's more than just recognition on the line. Each category features cash prizes, including $1,000 for first place and $500 for second place. Submissions are open now, but the deadline to enter is May 25th. So don't wait until the last minute panic and coffee-fueled regret kicks in. If you're an independent journalist, editor, filmmaker, publisher, student journalist, or simply someone who believes in press freedom, this event is for you. The IPG Awards Luncheon takes place Sunday, August 30th at 12 at the Novotel North York in Toronto. Submit your work, apply to attend, or grab your tickets today. Find out more at independentpressgallery.com, because independent journalism deserves its own stage.